Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our Industry Outlook webinar this morning, Risky Business, Managing Fraud, Theft and Asset Protection. I'm Amanda Brandon, Director of Member Engagement here at the BVRLA. I'll start slowly just so that everybody has a chance to get in. I know these things can sometimes take time with everybody joining all at once. And I know we've got quite a lot of people signed up for this webinar this morning. I just want to welcome you all. Thank you for joining us. We've got an action-packed hour ahead of us, and we do need to finish promptly at 10. So I'm not going to do too much talking this morning. I'm going to let our experts take over. So we've got 3 sessions planned this morning. Firstly, we've got Aaron Tolley, who is the security manager at Avis. He's going to join us and talk around protecting your vehicles in a cost of living crisis. He's got years of experience, and I'm sure he'll do a better job than me of introducing himself, so I'll let him do that. We're then going to get Tony Matthews from Sentinel to give us a bit of an update on the insurance industry, what they're seeing, particularly on the rental side. Tony's got many years' experience in insurance and on with the rental side, so he'll be able to give us some useful information. And then finally, we're going to hear from Lee Anderson at Coastr. And Coastr have kindly supported us today. This webinar is in partnership with them, and we thank them very much for their support. He's going to give us a little insight into the rental software and how it can protect our business. So if we can just move on to the next slide, as ever with all our webinars, I just need to remind you about competition law. We do really want some questions this morning, particularly around the first session that we've got going with Aaron. I've got some questions for him, but I think it would be really good, obviously, to hear from yourselves. The Q&A box is on the right-hand side. You can see that. If you can use that to ask questions, that would be great as we go through his slides. But importantly, please don't ask any questions around pricing, anything around strategies. Don't name individual suppliers, things like that. Obviously, we'll keep a close eye on those questions. Any that we're not comfortable with, obviously, we won't ask, but just be mindful of the competition law. So I'll just leave that up there for one more second while everybody's coming in. And then we will hand straight over to Aaron and we can get on with his session.
Good morning.
Good morning, Aaron. Thanks for joining us. If you can share your slides, and I'll be quiet and let you share all your knowledge.
Are they showing now?
They are. Fantastic.
Excellent. With that wonderful picture of my grumpy face in the bottom right. Thank you. So morning, guys. I'm Aaron Tolley. I'm currently the security manager at Avis Budget UK, and I've been here for 7 years. Prior to that, I was a police officer in West Yorkshire Police, working for them for 11 years. So in that time, I've spent a bit of time working in and around the vehicle crime sector. And today we're going to go through a few different bits in terms of the industry and how to protect yourself, your assets. I'm going to touch on some vehicle crime trends in general, and then I'll move on to some specifics around the rental industry and targeted crime there, some vehicle-borne crime stuff, so the crime types where vehicles are used within, a few bits on protecting your business, and then I think one of the most important things that we'll discuss, and luckily I can openly talk about it, is the reporting of crime and how we can negate that common phrase that everybody's used to hearing of it's a civil matter, and what to do in terms of that. So I'll move quickly on into the vehicle crime trends piece. I've spoken with Paul, who was going to present today. Unfortunately, he's not able to log on. He's in a training session. So we've sort of had a discussion in around vehicle crime trends and picked out the sort of top 5 that we think everybody needs to be aware of. A lot of it you'll already hear, you'll have seen on the news. A lot of it's recent in the press, and it has started to become more and more apparent. I know from speaking to the police yesterday that even up in Cleveland, every single one of these crime types you've got in front of you has been seen on one singular council estate in the last 7 days. So crime types are sort of hard to specify, but we've broken down the most common ones. So the first one is the Coastr cannibal. That was dubbed within the Birmingham West Midlands area. It's now prevalent across all of the UK and not just targeting the Vauxhall Coastr as traditionally. It's an organised crime group behind it that are now targeting multiple vehicles. They wait till cars are parked up on the roadside, will attend and strip, in effect, the car at the side of the road. So traditionally, we're all used to seeing a car that gets stolen and then stripped. These guys are just going out and stripping it for whatever parts they want at the side of the road. It's a really hard thing to protect yourself against, especially when you've got sort of large forecourt areas. You've got your lots. It's just a crime type that seems to be growing. There's a lot of people within policing that are concerned that this is going to become the new thing because of this sentencing side of things. It's a lesser offence within the law than a theft of a vehicle is a theft from a motor vehicle, and so they believe that that's probably why it's happening. Relay theft is the range extending of the signal from your key fob to the car. So in effect, the same as what you'd have if you struggle with your Wi-Fi within your home. You have a range extender. These guys are using a similar device. They have to work in twos usually, and they will attend either at forecourts, at dealerships, home addresses, and they extend the range by holding a box next to the car, pressing the lock button on the car and the start button on the vehicle. That sends a signal out from within inside the vehicle that starts to look for the key to make sure the key is present. And the other person that's working with them will attend outside the address or wherever the key is based and hold another device against the side of that building, hoping to catch the range of the key. That extends the range of the two devices, makes them meet in the middle, tricks the car into thinking that the key's present, and off they go and can drive the car away. Due to safety issues within EU safety laws and things, the car won't cut out because the key's not there, because that would be dangerous for people who've probably left the keys at home or accidentally done so. And so they can drive that car for as long as they wish until they can then let the police car go past. They can then reprogram their own fob for the car and continue to use it. So this is a crime type that's been growing and growing over the past few years. It's across all makes and models. Again, it's difficult to protect yourself against. Faraday bags, Faraday cages for keys are the easiest thing you can use. But we've now moved from that because of the work that's been done with OEMs. That takes us into the next side, which is the CAN bus invaders. So the CAN bus is the control access network of the car. It's basically the nervous system of the vehicle, and the bus is the travel of it round the car. So it's the signals within a vehicle. And since the OEMs and other companies have brought in new security measures in regards to relay theft, the criminals have now sort of changed their tact and approach and are now using a CAN bus, which is basically tapping into the system. So a few of you will have seen online and around LinkedIn and stuff, there's pictures of Jaguar Land Rover vehicles with holes cut in the back of them. There's footage of Toyota Lexus vehicles where people are seen sort of fiddling around in the front passenger side of the vehicle. And these people are basically opening up the side of the vehicle to get into that wiring system within, and then tapping into it and using the emergency start system that's built into all cars, again, because of safety laws, to then override and trick the car into thinking there's a key present with it. It's a really difficult thing to block, is the CAN bus invaders. There's not really a lot that an owner of a vehicle can do with that because the wiring is everywhere within the vehicle. This is a thing that, you know, when we've got vehicles on lots, to prevent the theft via CAN bus, the only way to really do that is by protecting your lot itself, securing it, gating it, rising bollards, etc. It's growing, and I'll show you on the next slide the way that the missing vehicles that we see in the UK that have been stolen via theft is changing and how much it's grown. And that taps into the OBD override system. So the OBD override is a less technical version of the CAN bus. It's a less intrusive way of doing CAN bus invading. So it requires a person to have access to the vehicle. So they use what's called a turbo decoder, openly available on the internet. If you type that into Google, you'll find yourself onto a link for Amazon and eBay, and anybody can buy a turbo decoder. You can buy a lockpick for £13 to get yourself into any vehicle that's out there. And once you've opened the door, you've got access to the onboard diagnostics port, the OBD port. OEMs are looking at options in terms of OBD, and there's some talk of it being phased out totally as a means of theft, and how they're going to limit that down in terms of people being able to access vehicles and override vehicles via the OBD port. But at the moment, still a common type. And false plates, I've put this on here because we see it everywhere. You know, everybody sees vehicles that have been stolen, are usually recovered displaying a false plate. A lot of the false plates that they display have been produced. They're quite obvious when you're looking into them. They've generally got no markings upon them. They're just a plain plate with a number on it. There's no garage at the bottom of it. It's something that I know that members of the BVRLA have all been affected by it with the bigger fleets, is their cars being duplicated and their VRMs being put onto stolen cars. The key thing here is if you're seeing a spike within your business of traffic offences coming through for vehicles, and you're seeing it like one specific vehicle that customers are saying, no, that's definitely not me. I was nowhere near that area. Absolutely not my traffic offence, nothing to do with me. Then you need to be feeding that back into policing, because there's a fair chance that your vehicle has been duplicated, that the plates have been put on something else, and that someone's out there driving around in a stolen car displaying your make, your VRM on there, which is always a concern and can cost some sort of high value stuff to you. So this is not my slide. This is the slide from Paul Fagg, who couldn't make it. It's in and around Opal. So Opal is a part of West Mercia Police. As they were described to me yesterday, they're a bit of a data machine in terms of vehicle crime. So they take a lot of information from all the England and Wales forces, and they put that together and they send out packages in and around vehicle crime for all police forces. So this is vehicle crime from HGV crime right through to the stuff we're talking about today in terms of vehicles being stolen. You can see there that statistic of vehicle theft increasing significantly in 2022. We've seen a rise of 25% when compared to 2021. I don't think that comes as a surprise to anybody. It absolutely doesn't come as a surprise to me. And I was having a conversation this week and saying that I think that's the tip of the iceberg, and that 23 is going to be a year where we probably see another rise in that. The credit crisis has hit. People are short of cash. There's still a massive shortage in the market of spare parts, of vehicles themselves. And so we'll probably see that continue to rise. Police forces are starting to wake up to vehicle crime. There's sort of different people that have put actions in place. So West Mids have got their own vehicle crime unit now, which is specifically tasked and is successful, but they're scraping the top of the iceberg with their efforts. And we have to sort of take a little bit of responsibility ourselves within the industry to make sure that we're doing everything we can to prevent crime as well. You can see there the fact around the CAN bus stuff, particular in Toyota Lexus thefts. That's where the main concern for me is. Toyota Lexus has always been a car that generally we don't really see problems with, but the theft rise in that is an average, I think it's around 250% in timed out for a second there. Thefts have continued to increase. There's a demand for stolen vehicles. There was some stuff yesterday that I read around vehicles coming from America into Europe. I think it was the Spanish police have just taken something like 250 vehicles out of circulation that had actually been stolen in the States and were making their way into Europe. And when you're looking at the regions, you can see there that the Northeast has seen a rise of 65.8%, West Midlands 39.8%, and Yorkshire and the Humberside area 38.2%. So they're the highest rankings for vehicle theft. Doesn't surprise me from what I hear. Like I say, it's a concern, and we should really be aware that percentage is probably going to continue to rise for the next year. And I'm not sure what we can really do in terms of protecting ourselves other than sharing information with each other, making sure we're using the risk database, and really starting to look at our lot security. I'll just pop to the next slide. My system's very slow, so if I'm a bit glitchy, I apologise for it. Rental targeted crime. So Amanda asked me to speak about what we've seen in terms of the industry and specifically around ourselves being targeted. At the back end of last year, there was a series of drop box attacks. So they're the key return boxes. They were all in and around the Midlands. They were a crime type that affected large companies and smaller companies. I think in one incident there was 17 vehicles stolen. It was an attack on safe boxes. So they were forcing their way into key return boxes via using an angle grinder. Again, I think that's sort of settled down a little bit. We've not really seen anything else, and I've certainly not heard anything or been told anything by anybody to say that they've been attacked. It was definitely an OCG based in the Midlands that were doing that. The key return system's always a concern for all of us, and I think the best thing you can do with that is to ensure that you're using a robust key return system. You know, I've seen some companies where I've rented from previously before I came into the industry, where, you know, it was just pop the key through the letterbox when you finish with the car. It's not a safe option. Drop boxes are relatively inexpensive in terms of the security that provide you, and as long as you've got a good CCTV coverage, you know, a good alarm system, you can have specific alarms in and around your drop box that feed back to you. And can tell you whether someone's tampered. Things like that can save you a lot of money. Organised vehicle theft networks targeting luxury and prestige vehicles using various MOs. I think everybody who works within the sort of high net worth vehicle side of things would recognise that they're always going to be a target, especially when we're running like fleets of JLR and other pieces like that. I think one of the main things that we need to be aware of around that is that generally there's an MO of people presenting themselves using false details, using licenses that don't come from our country, or using details of different companies. So when I drop onto the next few slides, I'm going to talk about how to prevent yourself against that risky business. And then county lines is more around the vehicle-borne crime piece. So we see an issue, especially during lockdown. It's sort of petered off a little bit now, and the trend has moved back into public transport. But during the lockdown period, every company was seeing a spike in the use of their vehicles in and around county lines. Kirsten Dent is a retired detective inspector from Northumbria Police. She's now the National Transportation Lead for the National County Lines Coordination Centre, which is that acronym there, NCLIC. She said that you can feel free to reach out for any advice, any work, any training. She's got lots of different training packages, and she spends sometimes 3-4 days a week within a thing called the Hydra Suite, which is a police training environment. And one of the things that she pushes on within that Hydra is a link within the rental companies, which is something that we've all been working on, and ensuring that there's a free flow of intelligence between the County Lines Coordination Centre, the police forces, and the rental companies, so that we can make sure that while ever we've got customers out there that may be involved in criminality and drug dealing, we're protecting ourselves and we're protecting the wider public. So she's great. She would provide any help you need. So if you want her contact details, then please feel free to reach out to me. I've got some questions in the chat box that I've just noticed. So any thoughts on key drop boxes and best practices surrounding them, preferred design, etc.? As I touched on, it should be a sturdy safe. In effect, you're looking at a safe that you can attach to the wall in the same way that you would have a safe within your building. A really strong, thick design with a small rotating drum that just takes the key within it and drops back in. I've seen the drawer designs as well. They're a great design. Anything that's installed, preferably you would look to have an external drawer with an internal drop box, so going through a wall. That prevents anybody getting into the drop box itself from outside. You need to make sure that every day you're checking it. There should be anti-phishing devices inside it, which are usually prongs within, so nobody can drop magnets through. And one thing that I always advise is that when we drop a key back into a return box, we advise customers just to check the return box area, make sure nobody's put magnets within it. It's an MO that we saw a few years ago. It's not as prevalent again now, but people were placing a strong magnet within the drop box and then waiting for customers to just put the key in, and they walk away thinking that they've heard it drop, but it's actually stuck on a magnet within. The offender then comes over, opens the top of the box, just takes the key back out of the drawer and off they go. Got a question from Debbie about reporting crime. I'll touch that one, and I hope I answer it with the slides that I'm going to do. The OBD port being phased out, do you know if there will be a reduction in the data available, or is it just being phased out completely? I think the data is available, but the rumours that I'm hearing is that you're not going to be able to get the amount of data that you can currently through the OBD. It will be locked down. There's obviously the ability to get your data from the car wirelessly and use devices that are based on that. I think it's a few years out is the phasing out, but it's going to definitely reduce the amount of data that is sent via the OBD port. So your plug-in devices may start to suffer with the amount of data they can pull out of there. And unfortunately, I don't have any. Greg Thieck has just asked, do you have any data surrounding the proportion of thefts between ICE and EV? I don't have any data around that. I did have a conversation this week with a guy from the City of London Police. Again, it was in and around EVs, and there seems to be a real spike in the catalytic converter theft again. And generally, they are targeting the hybrid vehicle rather than the EV on that, and removing the cats in there because they've got a lot more valuable material within them than a standard ICE vehicle. I'll definitely ask if I can find anything, and if I can, I'll pop it on LinkedIn and get that out there for you. The next slide, please, is protecting your business against risky business. So we talk about the different crimes, we talk about the different pieces that we're targeted by, and the risky business that we're in. In and around the BVRLA's RVSS standards that we all work on, we are sort of bound to make sure that we know our customers. So the KYC checks that are available via various different means, we need to ensure that when you're giving a car to a person that they are resident at the address provided. There's tools available, like I say, through KYC checks that can verify that. You can do it very simply by just asking for various bits of advice from various bits of documentation from a customer. So, you know, a recent bill from an address that proves that they would reside there. We generally in the industry, we accept bank statements and credit card statements. I'd always say to members that if they were accepting those bills, I'd be asking for something else at the address, like Sky TV, Virgin, something along those lines where, you know, you wouldn't pay for it if you didn't live at the house. You should be checking that the information provided is corroborated by online verification and/or bills. So we touched on the KYC checks there. If we have issues within and around the industry, I'll always have a look on social media. Just type people's name into Google. It's amazing the amount of information that comes back on people. You can really quickly make your mind up about whether somebody is the kind of person that you want in your car, whether they've had issues before in and around criminality, and give that sort of opportunity to yourself to really make sure that the person that you're providing a vehicle to is the person that you want to provide a vehicle to. Are they known on the risk database? We were talking about the risk database, myself and Amanda, a couple of weeks ago, and the use of it. It's a great tool. Most of us will upload people onto there that are going to be risk to all the businesses. I know a lot of us have our own internal DNR systems as well, but the risk database is a free tool that we get through the BVRLA, and I'd always be advising that people check a person within there. Put on there your senses and what's your gut saying, why are you feeling uneasy. I think that's something that's always been drilled into me from policing right through into the rental sector. Is there's great senses that we've all got. If your senses are saying something, we call it the spidey senses. If your spidey senses are tingling about the person who's presenting themselves to you or to your staff members, encourage them to explore that. You know, you can really, as it says in the last piece, you can really know a customer's story and qualify a customer in a really friendly manner, and make yourself feel more easy about the person, but don't discount the fact that you do feel a bit uneasy about somebody. A few key things that I've picked up on in the years of being in the rental industry around organised crime, use of vehicles, around people who are going to steal vehicles, is there's always been a trend of the bullying of counter staff when challenged, a real sort of push against, you know, staff being questioning why a person's there, and the person on the other end of the counter really bullying the member of staff to get the car, pushing and pushing and pushing beyond what would be a normal customer. If that's displayed in front of you, I'd give and empower your staff to be able to stop that happening and to challenge that behaviour. It's a key indicator to me of county lines. You know, people are generally forced to rent vehicles on behalf of county lines groups, and they're going to be panicking if they're getting challenged and can't get a car away as to what may happen to them. So when we see that behaviour coming through the counter, we should be challenging it. Unusual driving licence origins. So we've seen a few members of the industry, and I've spoken to cops across the UK about rental vehicle crime, and they've seen a spike in unusual driving licence origins. People presenting themselves in stores with licences from Florida, with licences from smaller states across the states, smaller states in Europe. If you've got an unusual driving licence origin, you've got an English person presenting themselves with a British address, a British telephone number, and then a licence from a totally different random state, then it's not always wrong, but it's definitely an indicator that you should be looking into and encouraging your staff to challenge. If people are specific about the make, vehicle, and the model and the colour, that's always a concerning sign. I'd always advise staff that if we've got a customer who's presenting themselves and who insists on, for example, a black Volkswagen Golf, I'd offer them a white. I'd offer them a green one and say that's the only one we've got. Just to challenge that behaviour. It's some cars are stolen to order. We've obviously got fleets and fleets of vehicles that are very unique in their own ways, and each car, you know, comes with a different colour coding. If they've bought a vehicle, because one of the things that we see is stolen vehicles are generally stripped and placed onto accident damaged cars. They need a car that matches the logbook of their written off vehicle that they're trying to rebuild and sell on. And that's therefore why they'll be standing in front of you, being very specific about the vehicle make and model and colour. If you have a look online and type in bin list, BIN list, into Google, you'll find bin list checkers. So the bin is the bank identification number, and you can pop through that, have a look at your pieces of information in front of you, and make sure that the bank identification number that you've got in front of you matches with your card that you've been presented with. If they don't, then generally that's a sign that you need to do what's called a code 10 check with the banking provider and make sure that the details you've been provided on that card are right. I'm going to speed up because Amanda's just told me I've got 3 or 4 minutes left. So the new business piece, anything in terms of new business, if you've been approached to set up a new account, you should be checking that you're not seeing a recent directorship change. And if you are, qualifying that the person presenting themselves to you is proper and is the person that owns the business. Evidence of drugs and drink. We've seen a massive spike. I think it's a 200% rise in people who have had issues around being caught whilst driving under the influence of cannabis. Cannabis should be treated by all BVRLA members as the same as being a drink driver. If somebody presents themselves smelling of intoxicants, we wouldn't give them a car. If they present themselves and they're smelling of cannabis, we shouldn't be providing a car. It's a massive problem, and we really need to make sure that we're not giving people the opportunity to drive whilst under the influence of cannabis. Does the source of booking tie in with your customer? You know, is it a Chinese booking and a British person presenting themselves? Is it a booking from a random country and doesn't match up? Again, a sign of things that you need to qualify with. And as I said before, just make sure you know the story of the customer. Make sure that you're qualifying them properly and using all the tools that you've got available to ensure that the person who you've got in front of you is the person that you want to provide a car to. And then the last piece I'll do is in and around commercial vehicle security. So there's a lot of accreditations going on with Thatcham. There's new vehicle assessments, vehicle manufacturers, and you need to be looking at making sure you're using double locking and alarms. I will very quickly move to reporting because I know there's a few questions around that, and Amanda's asked me to make sure I can cover that off. The Home Office counting rules ensure that all police forces in England and Wales have the best crime recording system in the world, and one that's consistently applied and delivers accurate statistics that are trusted by the public and puts the needs of its victims at the core, which means that within their policy, they should ensure that all reports of incidents, whether from victims, witnesses or third parties, and whether crime related or not, are always given a number. One of the key things that I've been told by Paul in regards to the key question that we all want to know as to why it's always termed as a civil issue is, when you're told this is a civil issue and not given a crime number, you should be quoting the National Crime Recording Standards and the Home Office counting rules and asking that they record the crime as you believe that a vehicle has been stolen and that a crime has occurred, and you should be ensuring that you are using what this QR code here takes you through to the counting rules. You should be ensuring that you are using the Home Office counting rules to say that your offence has all the elements of theft and that you believe the crime has taken place. Then if they refuse to record, again, push back, challenge again, and ask them that they ensure that an offence has been recorded and that a primary investigation takes place before they provide you with a response in terms of being a civil issue. You have a right to have the crime recorded, and you have a right to, as long as you can prove that you've got a person who's acted with dishonesty, who's appropriated property, which a vehicle is, and it belongs to you, and that their intention is to permanently deprive you of the vehicle. You need to prove those 5 elements. As long as you've proved those 5 elements by following the stolen vehicle reporting guidelines that the BVRLA provide to you, then you can always push back. A primary investigation should take place after a crime is recorded. If the police wish to record the crime, carry out a primary investigation, and then they feel that they've removed one of those 5 elements, they may come back to you and say, this is a civil issue. You've got to ensure that by completing all the guidelines that you've got in front of you on the BVRLA stolen vehicle reporting guidance, you use that package. That package will ensure that you've met those 5 elements, and you need to push back using that QR code there, which takes you directly, like I say, to the Home Office counting rules. I know it's a frustration. I know when the police turn around and say, you know, it's a civil offence. I've been there. I've actually had it this week. And the success I've had this week was by following what Paul gave me and provided me the information. So you always will face a challenge when trying to record a crime of a rental vehicle. It's a historic issue. We are pushing to try and get the police to act more upon it, but you do have a right. So as long as you're following, like I say, the guidance that's set in front of you under the stolen vehicle reporting guidelines, mentioning the Home Office counting rules, mentioning the National Crime Recording Standards, you should not get that pushback as long as you push hard upon it. And Margaret, if you just go onto Google and type in bin list, you'll find the bin list checker. Is there any questions in regards to the effectively logging a crime piece? I know there's going to be a few before I drop off, because I think Amanda's pushing me to get off now.
Aaron, thank you very much. That was really, really insightful. And I think, yeah, there's quite a few questions. I think you covered most of them. So you did my job as chair as well as presenting. So that's fantastic. There was a few questions in chat there about the slides. We will make them available after the event, if that's okay with you, Aaron. And we will link, there's lots of guidance on our website to the stolen vehicle reporting guidelines, to risk. We'll make sure that there's almost a pack of information sent out to everybody that's on here this morning. Aaron, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk through that this morning. It's been really useful. Anyone who's on LinkedIn, I'd recommend you give Aaron a follow. He does put some really useful stuff on there as well, particularly things that he's been seeing through his day job. So thank you very much. We will quickly move on to Tony Matthews from Sentinel. He's going to just give us a quick 10-minute overview. Hi, Tony. On the insurance industry. Again, what you've been seeing, what are the trends, and any advice and guidance you can give us around presenting yourself for your renewal on your motor insurance policy would be great. Thanks, Tony.
Cheers. So good morning, everyone. Thanks to the BVRLA for inviting us to take part in this webinar. As we all know, vehicle rental is a risky business, as much for you guys at the front end as for the insurers that sit behind you to protect your business. So today, what I want to really try and cover is a general overview of what's been going on in the markets over the last year or so, what's coming down the line, what's already here, and as a business, how you can work to protect your own position. I think there's a lot of things for me that Aaron covered in his presentation that actually really reinforces a lot of the basics of what we see in terms of managing risk within the rental market and how that impacts directly on insurance. So in terms of what's shaping the markets, there's always an issue from capacity and risk appetite. What insurers are out there, what do they want, what don't they want, what's impacting those businesses, general profitability of the motor market, leading on to issues that have come through Brexit, energy and supply chains, how we've seen claims costs change, claims settlements, and how that's impacted through into claims inflation. Reinsurance is a measure by which insurers lay off larger losses to protect themselves. And all of these things together have had quite a substantial impact on insurers in recent times. So if we look at who the markets are today, there are, and there always have been, a relatively small number of insurers that have got an appetite to engage with the rental industry. And there are insurers there that are longer term players, if you will, in that market space. We've got some more relatively newer entrants that have come into the market in recent years. And there's a mixture of the established kind of traditional motor insurers combined with managing general agents who are in effect organisations that have delegated underwriting authority from insurers that can underwrite risk and place business on their behalf. So you need to look at your insurance partner, your relationship with that insurer, their attitude and what they're looking for, and how you have to kind of work within that environment as well. So in terms of what's shaping the markets, the general profitability of the motor market is a very real problem just now. We've got to a stage where post COVID and everything that came with that, the motor markets are really back to full steam in terms of what they're seeing in accident frequency, cost of claims. And that is translating through to a combined operating ratio that for this year is going to exceed 110%. And there's no immediate sign, excuse me, that that's really going to show any sign of improvement at any time soon. So the general profitability of the motor market, and this is the motor market as a complete picture, not just the motor market relative to self-drive. They're all in a bit of a quandary right now as to how they're going to deal with that. When we look at what's driving some of these things, the global energy and supply chain is increasing the cost of parts, materials, and that translates into dealing with motor claims and how those claims are going to be dealt with, what they're going to cost. Replacement vehicle costs we know have been a massive problem. Vehicle supply is an issue. Cost of new vehicles is a problem. Second-hand vehicle costs is an issue as well. And all these things translate into how claims are looking these days. Fraud, a statement by the ABI, the Association of British Insurers Association, have put fraud at £577 million in 2021. Theft, Aaron made the figure of about 25% is increase over 21 to 22. That's certainly a figure that other insurers would support through their own findings. And as Aaron also said, vehicles are stolen to order. Shortage of parts is such that vehicles are being stolen simply to be stripped for their components and actually moved on. Some of those vehicles will disappear into the Eastern European countries in some ways, but all of these things are very real, and how you deal with who you rent to will have some degree of impact down this route. Increasing claims costs, we know for sure that insurers are paying more to deal with claims, whether it's accidental damage costs, third-party costs, and that's leading to claims inflation. Reinsurance, there's been a contraction in capacity. So motor insurers that are providing the fronting side of, or the front end part of the insurance cover, are finding that their own position is becoming more challenged, and costs are going up. So those things will reflect in how they apply their underwriting model to come up with premium. So claims inflation, where it's coming from, so much I didn't realise in the past has come from production from Ukraine. So the war in Ukraine has had quite a substantial impact on the supply of parts and materials. We all know that the issues with semiconductors in terms of vehicles, all these things contribute towards longer repair periods, resulting in higher claims costs, but also in terms of the vehicle replacement process that comes along with vehicle repairs, longer periods of alternative transport. So one of the things that insurers are seeing and have been applying is looking to write more vehicles off as a means to construct a total loss, to stop a claim from escalating any further in overall cost. And of course, that then deals with one issue, but again, it does make claims more expensive for them. Theft and fraud is very much an issue, as we all know, and we've seen issues with organised crime that's come through where multiple vehicles are stolen or hired in one go. People might come along and paint the picture that, we're a local company or we're a company that's seeking to rent, and maybe put it on their own insurance, which gives you a sense of ease that, someone else is going to be picking up the bill if it goes wrong. But we've seen some clever organisations which will mimic a legitimate legal business and almost imitate who they are, but actually are just out to commit criminal activities. Second-hand car values, electric vehicles and advanced technology are all things that again are escalating the cost of claims, leading through to claims inflation. Vulnerable road users, less people necessarily are using public transport, so pedestrians, people on push bikes, even e-scooters are becoming more and more involved with motorists in vehicles and getting injured. So personal injury claims come through that process as well. So claims inflation, you can see there's some general overview of what increases the industry is seeing and dealing with at the moment. Claims inflation has always been present within claims, but post-COVID, post-Brexit, the general economic climate as things are today, those increases are a lot more astute and present than they have been before. So that's having an impact for insurers and how they respond. So what does that mean for us? Well, insurance is the shared pool of risk. So we are collecting premium, we're paying claims, and at the end of it, for the insurer, of course, it's about making an underwriting profit. When that starts to go wrong, and we're seeing it coming through now, then the insurers will respond and they will look to their policyholder base to pay more premium, in effect, to cover increased claims costs. At the moment, with claims inflation, we are seeing premium increases unilaterally across the industry as a whole. And typically at the moment, that might be a double-digit figure. Now, for some insurers, they're going to be looking at individual cases, as they do. And whilst I'm talking double-digit increases as a general, that may be higher if your claims experience hasn't been particularly good, and it may be lower if you've got a better claims performance as well. So underwriting considerations will and do vary from insurer to insurer. And claims experience is very much a key ingredient to that process, but it's not the only consideration. So how can you kind of look to protect your position? Fair presentation of risk, it's the basis on which insurance contracts are underwritten. But there's no point buying insurance cover if at the end of the day, the insurer doesn't really have a full picture and understanding about your business. Knowing your customer is very much a key part of the fundamentals of how you can protect your business. And Aaron made a very, good observation across so many elements about how you can do that: customer qualification, risk management. In all the years that I've been doing this job, customer qualification has always been at the root of protecting your business one way or the other, because, once you've let that vehicle go, you've got very little, if any, control over what the customer's going to do, who's going to be driving the vehicle, what they get up to. And we know from an insurance perspective that criminality can play a large part in what goes on with rental vehicles. And people that are going to be involved in criminal activity can use a rental vehicle because they're not going to be necessarily on anyone's radar. So customer qualification is massively important. It's so fundamental and basic to protecting your position. We can look at technology-based risk management products such as trackers, telematics, sleeper units, dash cams, and people are going back to good old-fashioned crook locks these days. So those are things that we can work towards helping to protect the asset and controlling them and monitoring the asset, coupled with good customer qualification. We see a lot of problematic claims where on face value the customer meets the basic requirements that's there, but actually if you start analysing those people and looking at those people more closely, you tend to find that actually they're not really nice people at all. So look at the options that are available to you to look at those things. Consider the fleet profile. You know, we see a lot of cases of theft and problematic cases where we've got some fairly nice, desirable product within the fleet mix, because fleet mix and the profile of the fleet will have a bearing on the type of customers that are potentially going to walk through your door. So consider those elements to your business. Fair presentation of risk, coming back to that again, it's a legal requirement. It's the basis and the foundation on which insurance contracts exist. No one rental business is the same. The insurer needs to understand what it is that they're being asked to insure, the profile of that business, the insured vehicle exposure versus customer-owned insurance exposure. Don't be under any illusion that just because a vehicle goes out under COI, that if something goes wrong, you're necessarily going to be fully protected. Have you got a process in place in your business that is going to check and double check that effective insurance cover is actually in place? All too often, and we see it on a very regular basis, vehicles going out on customers' own insurance, a problem occurs, and then all of a sudden someone finds a way to avoid dealing with that claim because the vehicle wasn't added onto the MID, they weren't added onto their court of declaration process. You know, it does occur, so consider what you're going to face then. Fair presentation of risk is about also, does the insurer understand if there's any special considerations about the people that you rent to, the profile of your fleet, special elements to your business with your client relations that are not standard, that the insurer needs to know and needs to understand. And that doesn't mean to say that just because you do something that's slightly different to another rental company, an insurer is not going to accept the risk, but they need to know and make that decision for themselves. So you also need to know your risk exposures and where your corresponding insurance cover is placed. You know, it might be that you don't have a motor trade, or maybe you do, and that your insurance exposures, your risks are covered under the self-drive fleet on the one hand, coupled with a motor trade on the other. But does your motor trade insurer know that you even do vehicle rental? You'll find that a lot of them perhaps don't. So always be mindful of that. Knowing your customer, do they meet the basic acceptance requirements by your insurer? We quite often come across clients that we talk to that we're perhaps not involved with, but they've rented to someone where they've not quite fulfilled the basic requirements of their insurers in terms of they've had a full license for the minimum period required, they've not done the right license check, or they can't provide evidence that they've done a license check. And actually, when the claim occurs, the insurer says, sorry, mate, I'm not going to pay for that. So be very aware of what you can and what you can't do. Consider the age and the profile of the hirer relative to the vehicle being hired. We quite often see discrepancies that just don't add up, and gut reaction and feelings about that person equally come into play. So be wary of that. Is the reason for the hire the occupation of the customer and the vehicle type that's been aimed to hired? Do they actually, you know, balance each other? Do they make sense? Do they work? And if you've got a feeling that they don't, then you're better off probably following that gut reaction and not renting to them. Method of payment, additional ID, all the things that Aaron touched on, these are things that you can control in your business. And if it's a first-time customer, search Google, have a look and see what's there. But also use risk. There's HireGuard, which is another problematic database check that you might want to do. But there's a lot of things that can go right in rental, and a lot of things that can go wrong. So don't make your own bad luck by renting to the wrong customer. So we know accidents are going to happen. If they do, get in contact with your insurers, talk to them. First notification of loss is a key part of trying to control the cost. If you've got problems, if you've got suspicions around theft or fraud or staged incidents, tell your broker, tell your insurer, and work with them. But communication within that process is really quite important for you to protect yourself and get the most out of that claims settlement. And when you come through to it all, your policy is obviously going to come up for renewal. So, as I've said, claims experience is a big part of what it's all about and how insurers rate the premium. But you can't do anything about claims inflation, unfortunately. So it is about how you manage your risk. That will make a difference. That will have an impact on how the insurer reviews your policy when it comes up for renewal and what they're going to look to charge. If your relationship with your broker, insurer is a good one, then that's great. Keep working with it. Make it work for you. If you think that there's things that are not happening that they should, and you get up to renewal, that's the time when you can do something about it. But give yourself the opportunity and the time to review your position and look at what your options are. Consider the rating options. So traditionally, annual rate per vehicle is where most insurers will come from, but it can be rated on turnover. It might also be rented on rental days. So look at which option is going to work best for you. And that may change from one year to another maybe, but talk to your insurer. And then finally, just consider premium funding, because the insurer wants you to pay up front. And as interest rates go up, so does the cost of borrowing money to pay your premium. So for me, I think that just briefly covers where the markets are at. So thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tony. Really appreciate you going through that. It was really helpful. I think there's lots to take away and unpack there. Thank you very much for taking time to present for us today. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
I'm going to just move us swiftly on because we are slightly behind time, and get Fran to work super quickly to bring Lee up, which is fantastic. You've appeared as if by magic. Welcome, Lee from Coastr. I'm going to hand straight over to you so you can dive straight into your presentation. Thanks for joining us.
No problem at all. Thank you for having us, and thanks everyone. Just give me 1 second. I'm doing this properly. Can everyone see my screen properly in the presentation? Yep. Okay, perfect. So thanks Aaron and Tony for your fantastic presentation. Really do appreciate it. I'll try and keep this as quickly as possible. I know we're up against the clock at the moment, but my name's Lee. I'm one of the founding members, and I also head the sales and partnerships team at Coastr. Now, for those who don't know Coastr, just a very brief introduction to who we are and some key highlights. So at Coastr, we're on a mission to digitize the $300 billion shared mobility market, which includes everything from car renting, car sharing, flexi leasing, and car subscription solutions through the likes of dealerships. We do this through our end-to-end mobility platform and unique tech-enabled partnerships to consolidate against fragmented functionalities provided by legacy competitors in the market. And what we feel sets us apart is our full stack mobility platform that leverages everything from telematics and to direct OEM integration through vehicle APIs to manage fleets, enabling things like contactless rental and hassle-free fleet services. Now, our solution also offers things like white-labeled end customer portals, as well as mobile applications, as well as a marketplace of partnerships. And you can see some of our partners down below as well, to provide outstanding customer experiences for our customers and the end customer as well. And just on top of this, we're also striving to help fleet operators achieve net zero targets and report on ESG data itself. So that's a very brief introduction to Coastr. There's some key highlights here as well. We do have a strong team of about 40 of us at the moment. We have customer base over 11 countries, so we are a global business. However, The majority of our customer base is here in the UK. We're very agile in terms of our development. We do a lot of development. As you can see, 250 new features were just released over the last 8 to 10 months. And we have our team is spread across three countries in the UK, USA, and India as well. Before kind of touching on some of the points, I just wanted to also kind of touch upon how important security is for us as a business as well. We are a tech company, so that is at the forefront of us. So we do strive to keep our customers and your customers' data safe and secure by adapting, various tools and implementing things like encryption techniques, etc., as well, to the best in industry standards. We are GDPR compliant. Our scorecard and security scorecard is there. We're an A-rated business, and we use tools like Amazon Web Services and Couchbase, etc., as well. And we're currently in the middle of doing our ISO 27001 certification as well. On top of that, we are a relatively new business, so it's really exciting that we're doing that. And I'm excited as well to talk about the various risk management features that we've actually built into the system. And I think it will touch upon a lot of the stuff that Aaron and Tony's already mentioned around security of the asset and security of personal data and customer data, and making sure that you are renting to the right people, as well as keeping your assets safe as well. Firstly, I would just like to define what we mean by risk management as well in the context of car rental systems. So risk management for us refers to the processes and procedures that car rental companies put in place to minimize risks associated with renting cars, but also obviously that customer data point as well. What I'd like to do as well is just kind of touch upon a use case which is quite preeminent for this discussion. Working with one of London's, I won't name any names obviously, but working with one of London's most prestigious vehicle rental operators. We saved them a hell of a lot of money through one of our products. Now, we are a rental system, so we do everything from fleet management, booking management, but we also incorporate telematics within that. So we look at things like driver behavior metrics, we look at crash detection, we look at diagnostic trouble codes as well for things like predictive maintenance. But on top of that, we do have a facility within the platform to immobilize the vehicle safely. So it involves the ability to disable the vehicle through the actual platform itself. So when the vehicle is stopped, the ignition's out of the vehicle, that will be deployed through a queuing mechanism, and then it will be deployed so that the customer can never restart the vehicle once it's been deployed. So you can use that to obviously for theft. In this case, we saved this customer over £75,000 per asset in a 1 month period where they had 3 thefts, which is a massive saving for the customer. And there's lots of other kind of benefits to having vehicle tracking, as I'm sure you're all aware. The cost saving, Tony's probably mentioned as well, in terms of lower insurance premiums as well, and just the knock-on effect of having a vehicle stolen. As you can imagine, having the vehicle stolen will have a massive impact on everything. So you've lost the asset, you have to replace the asset, you have to go through the insurance, the police, etc., and everything else that comes in between that. So that's one of our big features, as well as the whole point around predictive maintenance as well. So we do have the ability, like I mentioned, to do the usual tracking, but also real-time vehicle diagnostics within that as well. So you can set reminders, you can get notifications if a vehicle is out there on a longer-term rental and there's an issue with the vehicle. The system will flag that there is an alert within that as well. And it will allow you to then maybe bring that vehicle back and get it fixed to kind of prevent any additional issues happening within that vehicle itself as well. We also have, I'm really rushing through this here, guys, because I know we've got 1 minute left and I think we do have a hard stop, so I do apologize. But another point is, I think Tony was mentioning, and Aaron as well, is about renting your vehicle to the right person and making sure that, first of all, you're automating that process. So we do have, within the platform, we do have an automated DVLA license check. So when you take the details off the customer, you don't have to go out into the DVLA. You can do it all directly within the Coastr platform itself. and it will verify that that document is there, and it will verify any issues. Like, for example, it will download the license summary directly from Coastr and upload it into Coastr. It will check the license in real time for points and to ensure that you're actually renting it to the right person as well, and increasing efficiency and time saving as well. So you don't have to go out into one system, come into another, download the documents and put it into your rental platform. Coastr does all that for you within a minute. So you can check that, and you can continuously check the customer's license as well to make sure that there's no points given within that period. Another point is around digital signatures. So a lot of this is around improving security. It uses encryption to secure and make sure that the signature is done by the right person in the right location, and it cannot be kind of falsified. Decreasing cost as well, obviously, from printing out various rental agreements throughout that process, and other benefits around that. Now, one of the other things that we do have as well is our keyless entry solution. So you can offer customers the ability to rent keylessly as well. And we've built in some measures around that for the likes of digital KYC, biometric verification, to ensure that the customers are actually who they say they are, the document is legitimate as well. And we're building in safety measures around that as well to ensure that customers can offer, or you can offer your customers the ability to have vehicles within a keyless and contactless measure as well. I know we went over time, guys, and I've rushed through this. Do we have more time to continue, or?
You can carry on for a few more minutes, Lee. That's fine.
Okay, I feel very rushed into this, so I do apologize.
Sorry. No, don't apologize. You're absolutely fine.
Yeah, I should have probably went through it a little bit slower, I think, but I think that's the kind of main points, is that we really want to ensure that we can de-risk as much as humanly possible. Obviously, Aaron, you touched upon a lot of the measures that criminals can go through to actually obviously override certain things, but we're really trying hard to ensure that we have the best of breed technology to kind of secure your asset through the likes of verification, to make sure that you're giving the vehicle to the right person, that the person's face is what's on the actual license itself, and that the license is legitimate as well, all the way through to actually ensuring that your asset is as safe as humanly possible. So if there is a theft, or for even things like non-payment of a vehicle, you can safely immobilize that and get that vehicle back as well, which will obviously save you a lot of money and hassle in the long run. I think I'll leave it for any questions.
Lee, thank you so much for that. I apologise from our side for the fact that it was a little bit rushed, but I think it's really interesting to see the technology now and how that can actually support, some of the things that Aaron was saying at the beginning of his presentation about, customers and knowing your customers and how your system can really support that. We will make those slides available post the event so everybody can get them. And apologies to anybody who's had technical difficulties. I think the feed went down through Tony's presentation, but the backstage, I could see the whole thing. So that does mean that it's all been recorded, and we do make that available on our website afterwards. So anybody who, if you did lose the feed or you did lose the presentation, there will be a full recording of it. So there won't be anything missed. Lee, thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And as I say, we'll make sure your slides are available so people can see them. So that's it from us today. We have run slightly over. I do apologise, but I'll let you get on with the rest of your Thursday. It just leaves me to say thank you very much to all of our speakers, to Aaron, to Tony, to Coastr for supporting us on this event today. This is the first of our Industry Outlook webinars for the year. I'm really interested to hear your comments and feedback, and if this is something you want us to focus on in more detail, we can do maybe a deep dive later in the year in terms of risk and security matters. I think from the figures that Aaron gave at the beginning, there is an increase in vehicle crime and vehicle theft that we need to be aware of, and that we need to just be aware of within our businesses. So this could be a topic that we repeat later in the year. As mentioned, we'll make the slides available, we'll make the presentation available. The risk database, if you're not familiar with it, we'll send around some information post the event about how you can sign up to the risk database. As mentioned, it is free of charge. It's free and included as part of your membership of the BVRLA. So do encourage you to use it. Sharing of information is really important. And the stolen vehicle reporting guidelines, as mentioned, they are a little bit out of date. And there was a comment in the chat there. We are looking to update those and get them more, simplify them, make them more available to members. So we'll do that. And yep, go onto our website. There is training courses as well that can support you, particularly on the rental vehicle security system. So thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate your time today and look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Thanks, everyone. Bye.